Right, this is video 6.4. We've talked about parallelograms and rectangles. We've talked about triangles. We've talked about right triangles. Today we're going to talk about circles. Now, in all the other shapes, we've talked about perimeter as being the outside edge and area being the inside. What's different about circles is that it's not called a perimeter. So by definition, a circle is a set of points that are a fixed distance from a given center. The radius is from the center to any point on the circle, and the diameter is a line that connects 2 points on the circle and goes through the center. And so the circumference is what we call the distance around the circle. Rather than perimeter, it's circumference. So if you have your circle here, a radius is going to go from your center to the outside edge, and a diameter will pass through any 2 points. Think of it like a pizza, the way you would cut a pizza. It's going through the center, and that's your diameter. Now, if you have a line, this isn't in this chapter, but it will be in geometry when you take it. Hopefully you've heard of it before. If you have a line that goes and connects 2 points but doesn't cross through the center, that is not a diameter, that is called a chord. Now, every radius inside your circle, every line from the center to the outside should be exactly the same. And every diameter, any line connecting 2 points going through the center, is going to be exactly the same length. Otherwise, it's not a circle. So the circumference of a circle, you can find that by doing the diameter times pi. Now, anytime we're doing pi in this class, we are going to find the answer in terms of pi, which I'll show you what that means, and with an actual number. And when we use the actual number, we're going to use that pi is equal to 3.14. There are a lot more numbers past that. It's actually an irrational number that never repeats and continues on and on and on and on. The decimal is humongous. But all I need you to remember is 3.14. So when we type it in, rather than typing in pi on your calculator, I want you to type in 3.14 if you're using a calculator for this. All right, so you can do the diameter times pi, or you can use 2r, which 2 times r is the same thing as a diameter. The diameter is 2 times r. Now, the reason for this and the reason for pi is you can take any circle, and if you used a tape measure and you measured around the outside and you found the measurement of the circumference, and then you used that same tape measure and you went through the center and measured the diameter, the ratio of circumference to diameter is going to be 3.14 for every single circle if you measure it correctly. So that's the circumference. The area is going to be pi r squared. So in this case, you're going to take your r and you square it, which is r times r, rather than 2 times r, which is what circumference is. You do r times pi, and that will give you the area. So if I give you the diameter rather than the radius, you're going to need to find, I'm sorry, that's wrong. Your radius is going to be your diameter divided in half, divided by 2. So let's try a couple. So let's find the circumference of a circle if our radius is 5 centimeters and if its diameter is 1.5 inches. So since it already gives it to me as a radius, I'm going to do C equals 2 pi r. So that's 2 times pi times 5. Now, by PEMDAS, I can take my 2 and my 5 and multiply them together and give me 10 pi. This is what it looks like in terms of pi. Perfectly acceptable answer, this one right here. If we're wanting to write it in terms in numbers where we solve pi out, we're going to use 3.14. So that would be like 10 times 3.14. Which is approximately 31.4. Now, the reason it's only an approximate and not an equal to is because pi isn't perfectly equal to 3.14. It is actually a much bigger number than that, so this would actually be a decimal that's going to continue on and on, but we want to limit it to about a tenth or a hundredth at the very most of a fraction, of a decimal. All right, so for diameter, since it already gives it to us in diameter, we can do our circumference is d pi. All right, so that would be 1.5 pi. That's how you would write it in terms of pi. If we're wanting to write it, go ahead and take it down to the decimal. That would be 4.71 inches. I'll go ahead and stick that in there. So circumference is pretty simple. You're just going to take your radius times 2 or put in your diameter times pi. Finding area can be a little bit trickier. Just got to be careful with the squaring of the radius. So let's look at our radius is 5 centimeters. Remember, it's pi r squared is the area of a circle. We're going to keep our pi there, put our r in. We're going to square the r, so 5 times 5 is 25. So in terms of pi, our area is 25 pi. If we're wanting to take that on down to a decimal number, that would be 78.5 centimeters squared. Remember, area is always squared. Now, going to spend a little more time doing diameter. So remember, our diameter is our radius is equal to our diameter divided by 2. And we want radius in our problem rather than diameter. So we have to make an adjustment to this number right here. So let's go ahead and find that. What is 1.5 divided by 2? It's 0.75. So that's what we're going to use. So our area is pi r squared. So that would be pi times 0.75 squared. 0.75 times 0.75 is going to give us pi times 0.5625. So in terms of pi, this is how we would write it. That's an acceptable answer. If we're taking it all the way down to a decimal, it would be, this one we would have to round off. The others, it gives me a nice ending decimal, a nice rational number. But in this case, it doesn't. And so I'm going to round it at a hundredth, which is 1.77 inches squared. It's a pretty small circle altogether. Right, that's all for today. So go ahead and click on the link and complete your homework, and I will see you in class.